Everyone thought it was just another quiet dinner, until the lights flickered and a scream came from the locked study room. What they found inside changed the case forever. The rain had just started to drizzle when Detective Adrian Cole parked his black sedan outside the sprawling countryside estate. The mansion stood tall in muted stone, its ivy-clad walls giving it an old-world charm that seemed almost too quiet for the storm brewing in the air. The garden was manicured, but the air carried a heaviness, as though the house itself had swallowed something it didn't want to let go. Beside him, his assistant, Clara Hayes, adjusted her coat and gave him that sly, teasing smile she always carried. She was sharp, her mind fast like a blade, but she had the habit of brushing her charm against Adrian, knowing well he never allowed distractions during a case. Yet, that never stopped her. You think the wife will be in tears? Or will she play the strong, grieving widow? Clara asked, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear as she leaned back in the seat. Adrian's dog, Rex, a large German shepherd with piercing amber eyes, let out a low growl from the back seat. The animal had instincts sharper than most humans Adrian worked with, and he trusted those instincts like scripture. "Let's not decide before we step inside," Adrian replied, voice calm, scanning the estate windows that glowed faintly against the gray sky. "But remember, grief wears many masks." They stepped out, their shoes crunching over wet gravel. A butler, stiff in posture but visibly shaken, guided them into the house. The moment Adrian crossed the threshold, he noticed the subtle details most people would miss. The faint smell of cinnamon tea, a vase of fresh lilies in the foyer, a small table with family photographs. Everything screamed of warmth and domesticity, and yet the air felt cold, unnervingly so. The victim, Henry Blackwood, a wealthy entrepreneur, had been found dead in his study 2 nights ago. Official reports leaned toward natural death, heart attack. But Adrian's instincts told him otherwise, which was why he was here. In the grand living room, they were greeted by Evelyn Blackwood, Henry's widow. She was young, much younger than Henry had been, her face pale, delicate, and framed by soft curls. She looked like someone who had been sculpted to appear fragile, her eyes wide with sorrow, but there was something unreadable beneath that grief. "Detective?" Evelyn said, her voice trembling. "I still don't understand why anyone doubts the doctors." Henry, he wasn't well. His heart. He had problems for years. Adrian gave her a gentle nod, his expression unreadable. Clara, however, tilted her head, observing the woman as though studying a puzzle piece. Rex padded quietly near Adrian's side, sniffing the carpet before pausing at the base of the stairs, ears twitching. The living room was lavish but lived in, large velvet armchairs, a roaring fireplace, half-drunk glasses of wine on the coffee table. Adrian noticed one of them had lipstick on the rim, smudged. He also noticed the firewood was still burning high despite it being midday, a small detail, but one that suggested someone wanted to erase the chill, or perhaps the smell. Before Adrian could ask his first question, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed. A young woman entered the room, Henry's daughter from his first marriage, Laura. She was in her early 20s, her face pale but her eyes sharper than her stepmother's. She carried a storm in her gaze. "You shouldn't even be here," Laura snapped, glaring at Evelyn. "Everyone knows you hated him." The room thickened with silence. Evelyn flinched, her fragile composure cracking for just a second before she composed herself again, placing a hand dramatically over her chest. Clara leaned closer to Adrian, whispering, "4 minutes in, and we already have fireworks." Adrian's eyes moved slowly between the two women. His instincts whispered to him, This house was holding secrets, and the storm outside was nothing compared to the one about to unravel within these walls. Rex growled again, low and steady, his nose still fixed toward the stairs. Something, or someone, had left a trace there, and Adrian knew this was only the beginning. Detective Adrian leaned back in his chair, tapping his pen against the notepad. His assistant Clara sat across the table, swirling the last sip of her coffee. She wore that mischievous smile again, the one that told Adrian she was holding back a thought she'd eventually drop, like a spark, in gasoline. The widow, Margaret, had left just minutes ago. Her soft sobs still seemed to echo in the silence of the dining hall. Adrian's dog, Duke, sat at the foot of the table, sniffing around curiously. Suddenly, he let out a low growl near the leg of Margaret's chair. Clara leaned down. "What is it, Duke?" She found a small folded napkin wedged between the chair and the floor. She handed it to Adrian.
The paper was smeared with faint lipstick Margaret's shade. On it, a hastily written note: "Meet me at the greenhouse after midnight. Don't bring her." Adrian's sharp eyes narrowed. Who was she warning him about? Before Clara could answer, the heavy wooden doors creaked. Henry, the family's driver, stepped in, looking uneasy. "Detective, I think you should see this. The back door wasn't locked last night, and someone left muddy footprints inside." The group followed Henry toward the back entrance of the mansion. Adrian's heart ticked faster. The prints led from the garden door into the corridor. That connected to Robert's study, the room where the victim had been found. Robert's death was ruled natural, Clara said, her tone carrying doubt. But if someone entered here that night, then it wasn't natural at all. Adrian finished grimly. Just then, Duke barked sharply and ran toward the study. Everyone hurried after him. Inside, the room still smelled faintly of cigars and brandy. The curtains swayed, though no window was open. Adrian's gaze swept across the shelves of books, the half-empty glass on the desk, the faint indentation of a ring on the wooden surface, as though someone else had been there. Then, Clara froze. She had picked up a small silver locket lying beneath the chair. Inside was a photograph of Robert, with a woman's face carefully scratched out. Her lips parted. Someone hated her enough to erase her. But who? A sharp sound interrupted the clatter of glass shattering upstairs. Everyone bolted toward the staircase. As Adrian and Clara climbed, tension thickened like storm clouds. At the top, in the hallway, a housemaid trembled, holding a broken vase. I swear, I didn't mean to," she stammered. "But there's something you should know. The master wasn't sick. He had an argument with Mrs. Margaret that very night. I overheard. She was angry, and she said if he didn't stop seeing her, he wouldn't wake up the next morning." The silence that followed was deafening. Clara shot Adrian a look of disbelief. The widow, who seemed so fragile moments ago, had been heard threatening her husband. But before Adrian could speak, thunder cracked outside, and the mansion's lights flickered. Duke growled low again, staring down the corridor toward Margaret's bedroom. "Another twist," Clara whispered, "and we're just scratching the surface." Adrian straightened his coat. "We'll need answers, and we'll get them tonight." Adrian leaned back in his chair, his dog Rex resting calmly at his feet. The warm flicker of a fireplace lit the dim study where he and Emily had gathered the family for questioning. Rain pattered against the tall windows, its rhythm intensifying the silence in the room. Mrs. Harrington, the widow, sat near the edge of her seat, her face pale, hands clasped tightly as if holding on to her last sense of composure. She wore a silk robe, the kind that spoke of luxury, but her trembling fingers betrayed the elegance. Adrian studied her carefully. "Mrs. Harrington," he began softly, "can you tell me again what happened last night? From the moment you last saw your husband until you found him this morning." She swallowed, eyes darting between the detective and Emily, who scribbled quick notes in her small leather-bound journal. "He went upstairs to read, as he always did. I stayed in the living room. I fell asleep there, and when I woke up, the house was quiet, too quiet. I went to check on him and found him lifeless." Her voice cracked, but there were no tears. Emily caught that detail instantly. She leaned toward Adrian, whispering under her breath, "No tears, not a single one." Before Adrian could respond, Rex lifted his head, ears pricked. He padded across the room and began sniffing near the heavy curtains. His low growl broke the moment, drawing everyone's attention. "What is it, boy?" Adrian muttered. He pulled the curtain back, revealing a small smear of mud on the polished wooden floor beneath the window. He crouched, touching it with his gloved hand. The mud was fresh. The room tensed. Emily's eyes widened. Someone was outside this window, maybe even came inside. The widow's hands tightened on her robe. "No, that's impossible. The windows are always locked. Always." Adrian turned slowly, his gaze heavy on her. "And yet, here's the proof that someone stood here last night, while your husband was still alive." The widow shook her head, her lips quivering. I don't know how that could happen." Just then, the front door opened, and in walked the butler, Mr. Collins, his face shadowed with unease. He carried a silver tray with 2 cups of untouched tea. "Sir, you may want to know, one of the maids said she saw lights in the garden last night, past midnight." Emily immediately leaned forward. "Lights, like a lantern." Collins hesitated, then nodded. "More like a flashlight." The twist cut through the room like a blade. If someone had been moving through the garden with a flashlight at the time of the murder, then it wasn't a simple crime of passion, it was planned. Adrian rubbed his chin, processing. His assistant noticed his distraction, the way his sharp composure flickered as new possibilities swirled. She leaned close, her perfume subtle but distracting in its own right, whispering with a grin, "Bet you didn't expect this, did you?" He gave her a look, half annoyed, half amused. "Focus, Emily." But the truth was, even he was distracted. Every few minutes, the puzzle shifted. What began as a death in bed now pointed toward something darker. And then came another blow. Rex suddenly barked sharply and pawed at something under the armchair. Adrian bent down and pulled out a torn piece of cloth, a fragment of silk, stained faintly with blood. It matched the color of Mrs. Harrington's robe. The entire room went still. Emily exhaled slowly, her voice almost trembling with curiosity and disbelief. "Detective, this changes everything." The tension inside the mansion was heavy, like a storm about to break. Detective Adrian sat back on the leather chair, his sharp eyes narrowing as he replayed every moment from the investigation. Sophia, his assistant, stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, biting her lip nervously. Even Rex, the dog, had gone quiet, lying on the rug but keeping his gaze fixed on the grieving widow. Adrian finally spoke. "You know what's strange, Eleanor? A man dies suddenly in his own study, with no signs of struggle, no broken glass, no unusual marks. His own doctor confirms his heart was weak, and yet something doesn't sit right." Eleanor, dressed in her soft cream cardigan, looked pale and fragile, her hands trembling as she clutched a teacup. "Detective, I've told you everything. Henry had heart problems. He was stressed." Her voice broke, and tears filled her eyes. Sophia shifted, throwing Adrian a look. "She seemed so genuine," she whispered. "Maybe we're wrong." But Adrian's gaze didn't waver. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Rex found something, Eleanor. Something in the garden, near the back door." Eleanor stiffened, almost imperceptibly. Adrian continued. "A small glass vial. Traces of digitalis, a heart medication. Too much of it can cause sudden cardiac failure. Almost identical to a natural heart attack." The room fell into silence. Sophia's eyes widened. "You mean?" "Yes," Adrian said softly. "Henry didn't die naturally. Someone poisoned him." Eleanor dropped the teacup, porcelain, shattering across the floor. She covered her face with shaking hands, sobbing uncontrollably. But Adrian didn't move. His voice was calm, steady, cutting through the drama like a knife. "You loved him, didn't you? At least, that's how it looked. The perfect wife, the grieving widow. But love mixed with anger can be dangerous. You wanted everyone to believe he died from his weak heart, but you gave him the final push." Sophia gasped. "His own wife." Eleanor finally looked up, tears streaking her face. "You don't understand," she whispered hoarsely. "Henry wasn't the man you think. He was planning to leave me for someone younger. After everything I gave him, everything I sacrificed, he was going to throw me away." Her voice grew sharper, trembling with rage and despair. "I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't let the world see me abandoned, humiliated. So I ended it before he could." For a moment, the room was silent, except for Eleanor's broken breathing. Then Rex barked, as if sealing the truth. Adrian slowly stood, his expression unreadable. Murder is murder. Eleanor, no matter how you dress it with reasons. Eleanor broke down completely, collapsing onto the sofa as the weight of her confession crushed her. Sophia touched Adrian's arm gently. "You always know," she murmured, half in admiration, half in disbelief. Adrian gave her a faint, tired smile. "Not always, but people forget the smallest details, always betray them." Outside, the storm had cleared, leaving the world unnaturally quiet. The case was over, but its echo lingered, heavy and haunting.